The Crew 2 Ubisoft downgrade. It's not happening. The Crew 2 will not suffer the dreaded Ubisoft downgrade. It's official. It's official. The panic is officially over. Now, about a week ago, as you may know, I actually put out a video questioning whether or not there's a possibility that the forthcoming game from Ivory Tower, The Crew 2, would suffer the dreaded fate that some previous Ubisoft games have actually suffered down the years, which is of course massive graphical changes, massive graphical discrepancies by way of downgrades come launch of the final retail product. Now, you may remember in that video, I actually tried to provide a very balanced opinion on this, obviously talking about what happened previously with games such as The Division and Watch Dogs 1, shaping the landscape for this negative connotation to be attributed to Ubisoft in terms of downgrades and watered down visuals, etc. But what I also did was I looked at their most recent track record, looking at games such as Assassin's Creed Origins as their latest launch, as well as the more recently released Far Cry 5, which along with Watch Dogs 2 all served as perfect examples of how the whole downgrading thing was blown out of proportion and was no longer a thing, as in the examples of those three games, the visuals turned out just as good if not better than the demos that were shown at things like E3 and Gamescom prior to launch. Now, the video sparked off some great and engaging conversation between you guys. There was a pocket full of people who still had their doubts, and that's understandable at the end of the day, but the overwhelming majority who did exactly what I asked, which was to head over to the video examples that I was talking about, were able to form their own impression and see that there had actually been improvements in the way Ubisoft go about doing these things. Now, after making this video and distributing it across my social media for sharing purposes, within minutes I received a message from none other than Stefan, aka Fergus. Now, for those of you who don't know who Stefan is, he is actually the creative director for The Crew 2 and was so for The Crew 1. The Crew is his baby, the head honcho of the development team. And as you can see from the tweet on your screens, no downgrade allowed, with an exclamation mark. You see, exclamation marks are statements of intent. They're serious is what they are. They mean that the person means business, and believe me, he does. Now, I'm very aware that there are some of you who are still going to be cynical behind this and think that, well, he could say one thing and mean another. This being a very small YouTube channel in comparison to other people's, it should come as no surprise that I was actually surprised to be invited by Ivory Tower to come down and play the game for a day, get a bit of a feel for it, have a conversation with them, chill, kick back, and experience another build of the actual game itself. Not just myself, but also some other content creators as well, including Theo. That's me in the picture. No, not the guy in the middle. On the right, that's me, the short guy. Yeah, so you can stop asking me for a face reveal now. Now, they did give me the opportunity to capture quite a lot of footage, which I will be sharing with you guys on the channel when I'm allowed to and not before. But I guess what I can say falls in line with the Eurogamer article that was pushed out recently, along with other bits and pieces, which is to say that the visual quality of the game, it's really good. Honestly, it really is in a good place, and for sure will be starting off on a higher pedestal than that of The Crew 1. Yes, it's the same location as it was previously, but the game feels totally different. There are extra buildings, there's extra depth of field, there's a wider color variation across all assets. It's almost as if the game is being played in permanent HDR mode, even on a regular monitor. And you gotta bear this in mind, guys, I'm not just basing this analysis off of the build that I played on Friday down at Ivory Tower. I'm also basing it on the first build that I played, which was actually one of the alphas. And that was on my own personal, relatively low spec gaming laptop, which runs a GTX 1060 with a basic screen monitor that has a 60Hz refresh rate. Now, I didn't get a chance to drive around the whole map, but I've got a suspicion it's going to be similar to the previous game, where not every single detail of the United States is going to be incorporated into the game, because that's just it's just a stupid thing to expect. But I think it's going to take things to the next level, where you've got more detailed environments, basically more context and depth to the chosen cities, whilst adding a few more. I should call them states, really, because that's what you guys call them in America, isn't it? States. Apologies. Now, again, just going over what's already been released and not giving away anything more than that, what you would have seen from on-screen images across various websites and official YouTube channels, the game looks beautiful at night. It looks absolutely fantastic. If you had a chance to play Watch Dogs 2, which I know many of you didn't because you ignored the game thinking it was trash because of what happened with the first one, you would know that the rendered detail that they put into the city of San Francisco, which is where Watch Dogs 2 was based, looked fantastic at daytime, but looked absolutely beautiful at night, mainly because of the type of ambient lighting that was used. Now, I didn't get a chance to ask the guys at Ivory Tower. Thinking about it in my head, I'm wondering whether or not Watch Dogs 2 had a little bit of an influence in the way they went about the lighting for the Crew 2. I wouldn't be surprised if it did. That's something that I might go and ask them at some point. But yeah, you've got to drive around the map at nighttime. It's fantastic. It's dark, but it still retains a lot of vibrancy. Now, as you can imagine, whilst we were testing the game, the amount of content, honestly, it overwhelmed us. Myself and Theo both left the place with headaches, real headaches, to the point where I couldn't even put out a video on Friday because I got home and I was just absolutely overwhelmed. I got there with a whole load of questions in my head that I wanted to ask, a whole load of certain things I wanted to capture in a certain order, and that just got completely blown out of the window by the sheer amount of stuff they kept throwing at us. One of the questions I did ask though was something that kept cropping up in the comment section in various videos that I did for the Crew 2, and that was, can you use a wheel? And the answer is yes. They will have wheel support for the full range of wheels, from Thrustmaster to Logitechs, etc. So if you're someone that likes using wheels, then you have got the option to do that in game from launch. Now, if you've been following the channel for a little while, what you'll know that is in relation to the Crew 2, I've actually put together something called the community car list, which is basically me showcasing a selection of cars that you guys have said that you would like to see added to the game later on down the line, because we all know the Crew 2 is more than likely to have a lifespan of at least 2 to 3, maybe even 4 years. Having the opportunity to finally meet Fergus face to face, I actually asked him, what are the major influences behind you putting certain cars in the game? When you guys get together at Ivory Tower, what are the restrictions? What are the things that make you decide that this is a car we're going to put in versus this is a car we're not going to put in? The simple answer, customization. He explained to me that the most important thing for him as a developer is that when the person actually gets hold of the game, when the actual player gets the game in his hands, the ability to actually personalize the car, the ability to actually change the look, the feel from both an interior and exterior purpose is the single most important thing to him, probably more so than the actual cars themselves. Because as car owners, as car fans, as petrol heads, as gearheads, whatever you want to call yourself, I think we can all agree that when you buy a car, whether it be through radical customization or just little tiny subtle bits here and there, we all like putting a little bit of ourselves into our car. A car is basically an extension of your personality. When it comes to video games, there is no better way to illustrate that than obviously customization itself. He continued and basically said, if a car manufacturer basically says, hey, you can have my car in your game, but you can't make any changes to it, he's not interested. It's not making the list as far as he's concerned. Now, obviously, there will be some manufacturers that allow you to have much more creativity than others, and I think we have an idea of who those manufacturers are from playing previous racing games. But I think what he's alluding to is that there's a level, there's a limit to what he may perceive to be the bare minimum that's allowed for creative freedom, and if that bare minimum isn't met and it's not suitable for him, then it's obviously not going to be suitable for us guys. Now, I fully appreciate that customization isn't necessarily the most important thing to everybody. I fully get that. There's nothing wrong with, you know, looking at physics and having that as the most important thing. Personally, physics and customization are the two most important things to me. They go hand in hand. Well, actually no, physics are slightly higher, I'd say. But I can't stress how frustrated, how annoying it is for me to pick up an arcade racer. You know, an arcade racer is supposed to be an exploration of adventures. I'm supposed to be able to do things that I can't really do in real life because either I can't afford to or it's just not legal, and be able to live out those fantasies by putting stupid rear wings on and lowering the car to stupid levels, and not being able to do that in these types of games is just annoying and irritating. And I guess what Fergus is trying to do is eliminate as much as that as possible. And for that, I think that's great. I commend him. I think that's fantastic. I'm all for it. Now, I also got to ask them about the physics, because we all know the physics was the most controversial part of the Crew 1. The great thing about this is that I got a chance to experience it for myself, and what I can say is this: the game feels massively refined. It feels so much more refined. You've often heard people say that the Crew 1's physics felt very floaty, very cartoonish, and it's almost as if I just said to them, look, in the Crew 1, the rear end of the cars felt like pillowcases with nothing in them, just air. The car would just slip and slide all over the place. This time around though, the cars feel weighty. They feel like they've got purpose. They feel like there's a certain amount of heaviness to them. There's an element of understeer as well, which I really like. The two things that I was most impressed about was that now when you upgrade the cars, they don't just feel like they're just getting faster, they actually handle better in all facets. The second thing was that now each car seems to have its own handling personality, its own set of handling characteristics. There's a greater degree of differences when moving from car to car. I did question the development team on this, and they did confirm that it was something that they had worked really hard on in the development phases of the game. And I, for one, could definitely feel the progress, because this version of the game that I played actually felt even more responsive than the alpha that I played a few weeks ago. Maybe a month ago, maybe 6 weeks ago. I can't remember how long ago it was. But anyway, that is basically it. That is a brief summary of the conversations that I managed to have on Friday. I just want to say a massive thank you to everybody over at Ivory Tower for making this possible. Honestly, I did not expect this at all. I found out I had the opportunity to go down there when I got the invite from Sam. I think it was around about 2 or 3 weeks ago, but I kept it very quiet, kept it silent. And it was just a great experience all in all. And as I mentioned, I've got so much footage that I managed to capture that I'm going to share with you guys hopefully over the next few weeks or so, just so that you can get a better idea of what the game's like firsthand. It was also great finally meeting Theo for the first time as well. That was fantastic. We both live in Britain, but we've never actually met until that day, so that was great. I've got to say a special thank you to him as well, because when I sat down and started playing the game, I thought I was actually capturing it. What I didn't realize was I hadn't pressed the record button on my capturing station, and he spotted it straight away. So I could have sat there for 4 hours just playing the game and then coming back with a blank and empty tape, and I honestly would have probably just disintegrated into a pile of emotions and mess and all sorts. But anyway, that's pretty much it, guys. So keep it locked on the channel. If it's the first time around here, I wish you a born welcome. Be sure to hit the subscribe button, and yeah, there'll definitely be more Crew 2 content coming your way soon. Take it easy, please.